This must be the loneliest place in the world. It contains one person to every 18,000 square kilometers, and there are more than 14 million square kilometers in all. It's also one of the coldest places in the world. This scientist is setting out to ring a giant petrel chick before it flies north to escape the Antarctic winter. He won't have that option. It's a tough place to live and work, but it's also beautiful and fascinating. And that's what draws scientists like this back to it time and again. The Antarctic has a rare and unmatched beauty. The American explorer Admiral Byrd called it a symbolic robe of white, which man must at all costs avoid dirtying. It was the International Geophysical Year of 1957 that finally confirmed the Antarctic as a true continent and not just floating ice like the Arctic. The IGY did more than that. It led to the Antarctic Treaty of 1961. Today, 40 nations work peacefully together there, all scientific knowledge pooled, all territorial claims frozen, all military activities forbidden. Britain, Argentina, Chile, the USA and Russia man most of the research stations. But many other nations have bases too. Most of the British Antarctic survey stations are on the Antarctic Peninsula and the offshore islands like Signy Island in the South Orkneys. Winter is coming to Signy. It sets in around May and lasts until the beginning of November. April is almost the last chance the British Antarctic Survey team on Signy Island will have to collect the specimens they need from the open sea. Soon now, the ice and snow will close in on them. Even so, Signy is lucky. It's far enough north outside the Antarctic Circle to escape the bitter weather of the bases further south. But its mildness is only relative. The approaching winter will bring temperatures of minus 30 degrees centigrade. Until 1996, as many as 15 scientists and engineers wintered at the base. They were marooned with each other and their work until the relief ship arrived in December. Unlike the Dominican gulls squabbling outside, they couldn't escape when the sea froze over. The freezing starts with a covering of what looks like a bed of translucent water lilies, known as pancake ice. The flat, matter-of-fact descriptions by scientists and meteorologists seldom match the beauty of events in the Antarctic. While Europe is enjoying its spring, winter grips Signy. Birds like the blue-eyed shag fly north towards open water. The first of the winter gales hits the base. It's gusting to more than 100 kilometers an hour. In winter, the heartbeat of the station is its generator. Light, heat, power, everything depends on its steady rhythm. A midwinter party in June. The season's precisely upside down. Outside, nature shows adaptability far beyond the range of humans. Alone of their kind, the Weddell seals breed during the Antarctic winter. Weddell seals are the most southerly of all seals. They range all the way down to the southernmost limits of the sea. They breed on Cygne, and one of the winter tasks of the British base there was to tag the young pups before they put to sea. First, mother has to be politely persuaded to move over. Tagging has to be done as soon after birth as possible. Within 2 weeks, this baby will have learned to swim. Tagging seals in sub-zero temperatures is chilly enough, but winter brings far colder research jobs. Hardy bathers in Europe sometimes have to break the ice, but this is going a bit far. The sea ice is up to 1 meter thick. A slit cut by the saw allows them to lower a net. But when it comes to underwater research, there's no real substitute for a descent by divers. A wetsuit only starts to keep the wearer warm when there is a layer of water between skin and rubber. So the freezing journey between the hut and the scene of the dive is made by power sledge. On the way back, when they're cold after the dive, speed will be important if they're not to suffer from exposure. The first sensation is a fairly pleasant one. Like the Weddell seals, they find surprisingly that the water is warmer than the air outside. The job today is to collect cores, bottom samples. The seabed is 10 meters down, but there's plenty of light under the ice, provided the snow on top isn't too thick. Diving under thick ice is a pretty claustrophobic feeling at first. But the divers say they soon get used to it, and there's always a rope to bring them back to that friendly hole on the top. The bottom samples are safely recovered. These inshore waters are shallow, and the seabed has been built up over millions of years in layers of sediment. Each layer is likely to contain different forms of marine life, living and dead. So the cores are extremely valuable when studying the life in these waters. The air temperature is about minus 20 degrees centigrade. It's no time to hang around with a suit full of rapidly cooling seawater. The hole has already begun to freeze over. Antarctic waters are extremely fertile. The bottom samples have produced a varied selection of amphipods. This neon-lit airship is a member of the rich plankton community. It's a stenophore, a kind of sea gooseberry or comb jelly. The flashing lights are cilia, minute waving hairs that propel it through the water. An annelid, a marine worm. These creatures are minute. A microscope is needed to photograph them. The larval stage of this annelid bears no resemblance to the wriggling adult. Antarctic fish are particularly fascinating. There are only about 100 species all told. They're peculiar in that many of them have very little hemoglobin, the red pigment in the blood, that carries the life-giving oxygen to the body. One group of species, 16 of them, the aptly named icefish, have no red blood at all. So how do they survive? They have a far larger heart than other fish. One fact that these experiments have established is that all Antarctic fish carry a form of antifreeze in their bloodstream. This enables them to survive in water temperatures that are lower than the freezing point of their blood. As winter drags on, the need to get outside and blow off steam becomes irresistible. Though it's still biting cold at Cygni Island, November isn't far away, and there's already a hint of spring in the air. Spring and summer on Cygni are at the most 5 months long. The thaw sets in around November. The sea ice breaks up, and the bergibits and growlers buffet each other around the shore. Even the thaw isn't a steady process. On some days, the sea tries to freeze again, and then the wind rises and smashes the ice to fragments. Then one day, there's a solitary figure on a rock, the first Adelie penguin. The Adelies are to the Antarctic what the first swallows are to Europe, a sign of spring. They've spent the winter in the open sea. Now they've come back to breed. The seals are returning too. Some species to breed, others simply haul out and sun themselves, like this solitary Weddell seal. Crab-eater seals live and breed on the pack ice. They are frequently seen close inshore once the pack breaks up. They're seldom seen together in large numbers, unlike the highly gregarious elephant seals, the largest of all the world's species. These are females. The bulls are the heavyweights. They can weigh up to 3 tons. Each adult bull has a harem of cows, sometimes 100 or more. His day is fully occupied in roaring at, and if necessary, fighting off the rival males who try to compete for the favors of the females. There are always pickings around seal colonies for scavengers, like the sheathbills, the only seabirds without webbed feet. The beachmaster, the dominant bull, can relax. There's no rival in sight. That enlarged nose, rather than his size, is what gives the species its name. In December, the ice has relented enough for the relief ship John Biscoe to sail into the bay. The short Antarctic summer is here. For the base, she means mail, fresh food, new faces, and for many, a passage home. Spring has come too to the penguin colonies on Cygni Island. Unlike the tropics, which produce a diversity of species, a cold climate does exactly the opposite. Only a few species are able to adapt to the rigorous conditions, but those that do, like these penguins, occur in vast numbers. The places they select for the breeding colonies are often the most suitable locations for research stations, and research stations attract visitors. In 1991, the Antarctic Treaty laid down a code of conduct for tourists to reduce interference with breeding penguins. Adelie penguins build their nests of stones, and they're constantly rearranging them even after the chicks have hatched. In a couple of months' time, they were ready to accompany their parents to sea. Adelies are devoted couples. This is a greeting display between parents. Young penguins are fed largely on krill, the shrimp-like crustaceans eaten by whales. The tragic slaughter of the great whales means more krill, so some species of penguin may benefit. The chinstraps, which often share the Adelies' rookeries, and the macaroni penguins, which at present breed only on a few sub-Antarctic islands. Nearby, the sheathbills go courting. Even in summer, sea ice quite frequently drifts into the bay. The rocks, though, are clear of snow, and this is where the blue-eyed shags nest. Most of the 40-odd species of Antarctic seabirds are monochrome essays in black and white, with maybe a hint of colour. Blue-eyed shags are like the rest, until a close view reveals their yellow face patches setting off their bright blue eyes. Shags are voracious birds. The young urgently and continuously solicit their parents for food. At last, when she's made the chick work hard enough for his meal, she feeds him a slightly pre-digested fish. Begging for food is often part of courtship between adults. It cements the partnership before mating. In the shag colony, the young birds are nearly old enough to fly. Studies of the giant petrels can continue now that spring has brought the adults back to the island to breed. They too must be ringed. An important first step is to hide the newly hatched chick in the shingle, where raiding predatory skuas won't find it. The giant petrel belongs to the same family as the albatross, and it's about the same size. It weighs 4.5 kilograms and has a 2-meter wingspan. This one has been ringed before, but that's not surprising. Ringing shows that the petrels frequently find their way back to the same nesting sites. Acetone is used to cement this season's set of plastic rings. Nestlings banded at Cygni have been recovered as far away as Fiji in the Pacific, as well as South Africa and South America, distances of nearly 6,500 kilometers. A male giant petrel has a larger, broader beak than a female. The tube-like nostrils on the top of the beak show its relationship to the other tube noses, the albatrosses. The southern giant petrel, which breeds at Cygni, comes in 2 colors, the normal dark brown and a white form which is much scarcer. The southern species, like most albatrosses, is declining in numbers because they fall foul of human fishing activities, being caught on long lines or tangled in nets. A lot of Antarctic research involves monitoring the impact of human activities in this hitherto pristine environment. When Gen 2 penguins started dying in the early 70s, the scientists naturally suspected that some form of pollution might have been the cause. DDT had already been found in crab-eater seals and other penguins, and they feared that it might have spread to the Gen 2s. The first task was to catch some healthy penguins. Easier said than done. It emerged that the deaths were due to natural causes, a viral disease called puffinosis. In succeeding years, the disease died out, and the penguins are no longer affected. Cygni is just one base among many in the Antarctic. From now on, the scientists will come only in the summer, like the Cape petrels. The base will be closed during the long, dark winter. Antarctica is the size of the USA and Mexico combined, covered by an ice sheet up to 3,500 meters thick. It contains 90% of the world's fresh water held in cold storage. Under the ice, there are mineral resources such as coal and precious metals, but the Antarctic Treaty prevents their exploitation for the foreseeable future. In 1991, a moratorium was agreed. There will be no mining operations for 50 years. Strict rules on environmental protection and waste disposal are intended to prevent the mistakes of the past. Research will continue to provide information which will be used by the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research to advise the member governments of the Antarctic Treaty. As the scientists come and go, they will take with them the most valuable export of this frozen continent, ecological understanding. The huskies are no more, exiled to Canada because they are an alien species. But the most alien of all, humans, will remain. The driving force that makes people want to work in such a desolate place is not hard to understand. It is the chance to live where the impact of humanity is still so slight. It's the rare privilege of touching, be it ever so briefly, the hem of that magical robe of white.
Another cold location tomorrow night. We're heading north to Alaska to study the plight of